When Sophie Cunningham got hit with a $500 fine from the WNBA for clowning the refs on TikTok, she didn't just take it in stride. She flipped the entire situation on its head, lit on fire, and walked out of flames holding an Arby's bag and a brand new personal empire. Yeah, that happened. Let's rewind the beginning of this now legendary saga. Sophie Cunningham, known for her scrappy play and zero-filter attitude, has always been a wild card in the league. But this time, she took things to a whole new level. After a particularly rough game, read blown calls, inconsistent whistles, and enough missed fouls to make your head spin, Sophie did what most players wish they could do. She opened TikTok, looked directly into the camera, and said what everyone else was too scared to say. These refs are trash. If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe. Okay, maybe not those exact words, but the message was crystal clear. Sophie roasted the officiating with just the right balance of comedy and truth, complete with eye rolls, side commentary, and a brutally accurate impersonation of a ref pretending not to see a blatant foul. And like all great internet moments, it exploded. The video racked up over 1.3 million views within days. Fans were living for it. Players were liking and low-key reposting. Even some former WNBA stars dropped subtle comments like, "Say it louder." But the league? They were not amused. Ended a $500 fine for publicly criticizing officiating personnel. Classic. But here's where most players would have gone quiet. Apologized. Posted a vague statement about respecting the game and moving forward. Sophie did none of that. Instead, for the next nationally televised Fever game, she stepped onto court wearing what would go down as one of the pettiest, funniest, and most iconic fashion statements the WNBA has ever seen. A t-shirt that said, "Hot girls eat Arby's." Let that sink in. No branding. No logos. Just bold white text on a black tee, screaming chaotic energy in the best way possible. A massive crowd, a national TV audience, and Sophie walking in like she was about to wrestle a bear and shoot 5 threes. All while looking like the internet's favorite meme. People lost it. The shirt went viral before tip-off. Twitter, sorry X, exploded with screenshots. Sophie Cunningham showed up dressed like a Tumblr meme from 2013, and I'm obsessed. Is she trolling the league? Because it's working. Even Arby's themselves jumped in, tweeting, "Hot girls do eat Arby's." Sophie gets it. And just like that, a $500 fine turned into a media hurricane. Let's talk numbers. Her TikTok skyrocketed to over 1.7 million followers. Her WNBA jersey sold out online within 48 hours. She picked up 3 brand partnerships within a week. One of them, obviously, being Arby's, who reportedly offered her a full-scale endorsement deal and a custom meal. Yes, the Sophie stack is now a thing. And to top it off, Jeannie Buss. Yes, Jeannie Buss, owner of the LA Lakers and executive producer Women of Wrestling, personally reached out to Sophie with an offer. That's right. The TikTok ref roast turned post-game petty shirt turned wrestling crossover career. This wasn't a meltdown. It wasn't even a clapback. This was a masterclass in how to take a league's attempt to silence you and turn it into an entire brand. Because let's be real, Sophie didn't just gain followers. She gained cultural capital. She's no longer just a player on the Fever. She's a personality, a walking meme, a rebel with a jump shot, and a camera roll full of viral content ideas. And it's working. But all of this, all of it, raises a much bigger question about the WNBA itself. Why is the league trying so hard to suppress personality? Sophie Cunningham is exactly the kind of star the WNBA needs. She's bold. She's funny. She's unapologetic. She knows how to play the game and the internet. In a league that's constantly begging for media attention, fan engagement, and cultural relevance, Sophie handed them a PR goldmine. And what did they do? They fined her for having too much personality. The move backfired, obviously, not just because it made the league look petty and out of touch, but because it exposed a bigger flaw. The WNBA still doesn't know how to handle players who play outside the lines. Because let's be real, the officiating has been an issue. Fans see it. Players talk about it behind closed doors. And Sophie simply said out loud, with a little Gen Z flair and a sprinkle of sarcasm. But instead of addressing the criticism, the league did what it's always done: penalized the player and ignored the message. Except this time, the player had 1.7 million followers and a fast food chain in her corner. Oops. And that's the lesson here. The WNBA can't keep policing personality and then complain about lack of engagement. Sophie proved that fans want the mess. They want the spice. They don't tune in to see robots. They tune in to see emotion, drama, swagger, flawed and funny humans who care so much about the game they're willing to risk a fine just to keep it real. In a way, Sophie's Arby shirt was the perfect middle finger to all of it. It said, "You want to find me? Cool. I'll turn it into a movement." And she did. Let's not forget how rare this kind of moment is in the WNBA. Yes, the league is growing. Yes, more eyes are on it than ever before. But these kinds of viral cultural flashpoints, they're hard to manufacture. They usually happen once in a blue moon, when the right player, the right moment, and the right amount of unfiltered energy collide. Sophie Cunningham is that collision. She's a hot girl summer of the WNBA. She's that friend who posts a meme mid-breakdown and makes everyone laugh through the chaos. She's relatable, chaotic, and confident, and somehow still drops 15 points with a snarl on her face and mascara that's barely holding on. And honestly, that's who fans connect with. Because sports are more than just wins and losses. They're stories. And Sophie, she's the main character. So now we're here, a $500 fine later, and Sophie Cunningham is having the best month of her life. She's got brand deals. She's got wrestling offers. She's got fans printing custom bootleg shirts of her Arby's fit and wearing them courtside. She's not just winning the internet. She's winning the game behind the game. And what's the WNBA doing? Still issuing fines. Still pretending the refs are off limits. Still failing to understand that this is what viral growth looks like. Maybe, just maybe, it's time the league took a page from Sophie's playbook. Because if they keep punishing players for being human, funny, and bold, they're going to miss the very wave they claim to want. Meanwhile, Sophie Cunningham, she's eating, literally and figuratively. Hot girls eat Arby's. Hot girls also eat fines for breakfast, turn them into millions, and casually launch crossover careers while everyone else tries to catch up. So here's the final question. Is the WNBA ready for more players like Sophie? Or will they keep finding the future instead of funding it? Let us know in the comments. Should Sophie join women of wrestling? Is her Arby's moment the greatest PR flex in WNBA history? And who's brave enough to wear that shirt to their next game? Hit that subscribe button if you live for the drama, and stay tuned. Because something tells us Sophie Cunningham is just getting warmed up. Because if Sophie Cunningham's viral Arby's moment proved anything, it's this. The WNBA is standing at a cultural crossroads, and Sophie just ran to the intersection with a curly fry in one hand and a personal brand worth millions in the other. And while the league fumbles with outdated rules and image control, Sophie's not just winning the moment. She's redefining the playbook for what it means to be a modern sports star. Let's be real, this wasn't a lucky meme. It was a shift, a defining line in the sand between athletes who play the game and athletes who are the game. And Sophie, she just made herself the WNBA's first full-blown internet-native entertainer. Not just a player, not just a personality, a hybrid, a walking, hooping, TikToking brand that cannot be boxed in. So what comes next for someone like that? First, let's talk monetization. Sophie's explosion on social media didn't just bring attention, it brought value. Real, measurable, bankable value. Her TikTok numbers now rival influencers who get six-figure deals for a single post. Her content isn't even heavily produced. It's raw, relatable, and full of that chaotic friend energy the internet can't get enough of. She's proof that authenticity scales faster than any marketing budget ever could. And with the Arby's moment, Sophie unlocked the secret sauce. Pun intended meme-forward branding. That shirt wasn't random. It was a walking billboard without the corporate gloss. It gave the internet a soundbite it could screenshot, stitch, remix, and wear on a hoodie. It felt organic, and that's why it blew up. She didn't wait for a brand deal. She created her own narrative, and the brands came to her. So now, the door's wide open. Fast food, apparel, beverage companies, even lifestyle brands are circling. She doesn't need a traditional agent. She needs a content strategist and a merch team, because people aren't just watching her. They want to be her. And this isn't theoretical. Her fans have started doing what most WNBA marketing execs wish they could manufacture. They're turning her moments into culture. Custom Arby's-inspired fan signs, TikToks reenacting her ref rant, Etsy pages selling Sophie Says It Anyway merch. This is grassroots fandom at scale. And it's not just hype, it's loyalty. And that's the currency leagues dream about. Meanwhile, the WNBA is lagging behind, still trying to figure out whether to embrace Sophie or keep her in timeout, which is ironic, because while the league wrestles with professionalism optics, Sophie's out here doing more for league visibility than any sanctioned campaign could. And she's not alone. Her success is a signal flare to other players. You don't have to wait for the lead to catch up. You can build your empire now. Expect more athletes to follow her lead, more TikToks, more memes, more outfits that double as viral statements. The players are realizing that the path to stardom isn't just through points and playoff wins. It's through culture. And Sophie, she just built the blueprint. Now let's zoom out. Sophie's rise is shining a very bright light on how the WNBA is still stuck in this half-evolved space between league and movement. On one hand, it wants to be taken seriously. Corporate deals, TV ratings, ESPN panels. On the other, it's still operating like a system that's allergic to personality. And that's a losing game. Because if your stars aren't allowed to be stars, you'll keep watching moments pass you by. Sophie shouldn't be the exception. She should be the norm. And every time the league tries to correct her behavior, they risk alienating the very fan base that's giving them life right now. Think about this. In a season where officiating has been under constant criticism, not just from Sophie, but from fans, analysts, and players alike, the league still thought silencing her was a priority, not addressing the officiating, not improving transparency, just issuing a fine. And the result? The Streisand effect in real time. They tried to downplay the moment and ended up boosting it tenfold. That's not a PR issue. That's a leadership vacuum. And Sophie's story throws a spotlight on that void. Because while she's out there generating record engagement and rallying new fans, she's doing it without league support. The WNBA could have jumped in, amplified her, collaborated with Arby's, turned the whole thing into a tongue-in-cheek campaign. Instead, they chose silence. And that silence, that's why Sophie's winning. Because she doesn't need permission to matter. Now, let's talk entertainment. With the women of wrestling offer sitting on her table, Sophie's brand crossover is no longer theoretical. Wrestling gets character. It thrives on over-the-top personas, catchphrases, and crowd engagement. And Sophie, she's a natural fit. She already has a persona, the voice, the fan base. Give her a mic and a ring entrance, and you got gold. And that crossover potential, that's a dream for any modern athlete. Think Shaq in WWE, Serena in Beyoncé videos, Megan Rapinoe on magazine covers. Sophie is now in that category of athlete who moves culture, not just within her sport, but across platforms. She could host a podcast, launch a fashion line, do comedy collabs, start a TikTok network, and yes, show up in an Arby's commercial where she dunks curly fries and calls out refs. The possibilities are endless. And with all this going on, the WNBA should be thanking her, because this kind of mainstream crossover is exactly what they've been chasing for years. Sophie didn't just walk into it. She kicked the door down. So what's the play for the league now? If they're smart, they'll stop resisting and start pivoting. They'll build campaigns that lean into the chaos. Let players speak freely. Give them media space to be messy, honest, and funny. Stop acting like athletes are liabilities and start treating them like the assets they are. Because here's the reality. The WNBA doesn't need to go full WWE to succeed, but it does need to accept that athletes like Sophie are the key to mass engagement. Her story proves that one moment, handled authentically, can deliver more reach than months of curated, PR-friendly content. And the fans? They're watching closely. They've made it clear they want drama, personality, and humanity. They don't want sanitized content. They want moments that feel real. Sophie gave them that. She is that. So what happens next? That's up to the league. They can double down on control, or they can ride the wave Sophie started. But one thing is certain. Sophie Cunningham isn't waiting around for approval. She's building her own lane, one viral moment at a time. And for every fine the league throws her way, she'll flip it, post it, profit off it, and probably turn it into a shirt. Because that's what stars do. They don't play by the rules. They make them. And Sophie? She just made rule number 1. Hot girls eat Arby's. And hot girls turn $500 fines into million-dollar moments. So what do you think? Should the league embrace Sophie's chaos? Is she the future of athlete branding? And who's buying that shirt for their next game day fit? Let's hear in the comments. Subscribe if you're here for the drama, the memes, and the moments that shake up the game. And don't worry, this isn't the end of Sophie's story. Because at this point, Sophie Cunningham isn't just a viral moment. She's not just the girl with the Arby shirt. She's proof that the future of sports isn't just stats and playbooks. It's personality. It's unpredictability. It's being unafraid to rattle cages in a league, still learning how to deal with disruption. And make no mistake, Sophie is a disruption, a walking, talking, three-point shooting cultural earthquake who just flipped a $500 fine into a full-blown media empire. The WNBA handed her a punishment, and she turned it into a case study in how to build influence faster than the league can respond. What's wild is how effortlessly she pulled it off. There was no PR team behind that Arby shirt. No polished, I'm just being myself media tour. It was raw instinct. And that's what made it work. Because Sophie tapped into something the league is still chasing: authenticity. It's not that other players aren't authentic. They absolutely are. But they've been trained to self-censor, to play it safe, to keep the edge dull in interviews, on social, and even in-game reactions. Sophie ignored all of that. She threw gasoline on her frustration, lit a match with her TikTok, and danced to the flames with a roast beef sandwich in hand. And what happened? People finally paid attention. Not just WNBA fans, but casuals. People who didn't know what team she was on, but knew her face from the meme. She hit that sweet spot every league wants: crossover appeal. But here's the uncomfortable truth. If Sophie weren't who she is, this story would have ended very differently. If she wasn't talented, she'd be benched. If she wasn't confident, she'd be bullied into silence. If she wasn't smart about her timing, her tone, and her trolling, she'd be labeled a problem. Instead, she became the moment. And that's where the WNBA needs to pay attention. Because the game is changing. Gen Z athletes don't want to wait for a platform to be handed to them. They're building their own. TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. They're using every tool available to control their own narrative. Sophie isn't just along for the ride. She's driving the car. So now the question is, who's next? Because if this moment opened the floodgates, we're going to start seeing more players ditch the standard issue professionalism in favor of personality-forward branding. And not just because it's fun, but because it works. Sophie proved that being yourself loudly, fearlessly, even absurdly, pays off. That's influence. That's impact. That's what the WNBA needs more of. And while we're talking about money, let's be real. This wasn't just a cultural win for Sophie. It was a financial one. Before the fine, her name recognition was mid-tier at best. Now, she's a top search player. Her merch is moving. Her face is on mood boards. And brands are calling. That's the kind of return on investment that any marketing exec would kill for. All from a TikTok, a t-shirt, and a whole lot of IDGAF energy. But there's another layer here. One that the WNBA absolutely needs to address if it wants to grow sustainably. The fact that Sophie's viral moment centered around criticism of officiating is telling. Because the refs? Yeah, they've been an issue. The players know it. The fans know it. But the league still reacts to criticism like it's radioactive. And instead of addressing the substance of Sophie's frustration, they punish the expression of it. That's not leadership. That's image management masquerading as discipline. The WNBA has an opportunity here, not just to be funnier or cooler, but to be better, to listen when players speak out, to fix the problems instead of slapping a band-aid of silence over them. Sophie's video wasn't an act of rebellion. It was a plea for accountability, one she just happened to make hilarious. And if the league had leaned into the moment instead of recoiling, they could have joined the conversation on the court and online. Imagine it. A cheeky campaign about better officiating featuring Sophie and a few brave refs. A partnership with Arby's to sponsor post-game meals for players who keep it real. A TikTok challenge where fans impersonate refs with the worst calls. Instead, they tried to control the narrative and lost it entirely. Because here's what Sophie understands better than anyone right now. The internet loves chaos. But more than that, it loves realness. And realness is the one thing you can't coach, fake, or fine into submission. Now let's look ahead. Sophie Cunningham isn't done. Not even close. She's not just viral. She's sticky. People are invested now. They want to know what she'll wear next, what she'll post next, what she'll say next time she gets teed up for excessive enthusiasm. She's not just building career. She's building a character. And that's not bad for the league. It's brilliant. Because if there's anything the WNBA has been missing, it's characters. Not fake drama. Not manufactured beef. Just players who are so distinctly themselves that you have to tune in. Whether it's to cheer or to cringe, you're watching. Sophie has that. And if the league's smart, they'll stop resisting it and start supporting it. Because for every Sophie moment that goes viral, there are 10 other players waiting for permission to be themselves, to speak up, to make the game fun and fiery. And the minute the league embraces that energy instead of policing it, that's when things really take off. So here's the real legacy of the Arby shirt. It wasn't about fast food, or fines, or even refs. It was about a player saying, "You can't shut me up. And if you try, I'll go viral, get paid, and sell out my jersey while you catch up." That's not a meltdown. That's a mic drop. And Sophie Cunningham? She's not just eating. She's feasting. So what do you think? Is Sophie the future of athlete branding? Should the WNBA embrace the chaos or keep trying to clean it up? Drop your thoughts below. Hit that subscribe button.